it was immediate response. So I can say that the customer service at AllTerra is actually second to none.
They're making PRC ammo around the clock.
Wrap carbon fiber around it with epoxy and have it adhere to the steel.
Welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast, brought to you by the team of hunt advisors at the Huntin Fool magazine, where we are dedicated to helping our members go on more hunts with better information. Join Huntin Fool today at huntinfool.com.
Welcome to another Built to Hunt podcast. I'm Garth Jensen, along here with Isaiah Joner, and we are pleased to welcome AllTerra Arms on as this podcast kickoff. And Todd Harney, and what's your role there at AllTerra?
General manager, which is sort of anything from QuickBooks bookkeeping and payroll type stuff down to assembling and shooting rifles when it needs to be done and everything in between.
So just about everything as far as just making sure everything's running smooth.
Yeah, pretty much. Trade shows, marketing type stuff, the podcast here. Just sort of fingers on probably too many things, but enough to stay plenty busy and keep moving forward.
Gotcha. And we're also joined by Drew and Foster. Drew, and what's your role there at AllTerra?
I own AllTerra.
Perfect. Enough said. Well, no, that's good. So I imagine you have your hands in just about everything.
Yeah, I'm definitely the jack of all trades and master of none. So yeah, kind of like Todd, and we share a lot of the duties and same kind of responsibilities. Todd's a lot more efficient than I am, so definitely glad to have him on the team here.
Right on.
Drew didn't get to go to trade shows this year because he was too busy running machines and keeping stuff up at the shop. So he's a fully hands-on owner.
That's good.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the whole custom rifle builds and long range has definitely exploded over the last 5 to 10 years. A lot of people in that space. So where did your idea come from, Drew, on AllTerra, and what got you into the market?
So this actually started literally on a napkin on a coffee table at a buddy's house. And the whole concept was I wanted to design something. There's kind of a dichotomy between like bench rest accuracy, those like competition guns and hunting guns. And there's usually a trade-off. The competition guns are super, super tight tolerance in the receivers and bolt fit, and they're often more accurate. And then there's hunting guns that usually weren't nearly as accurate. And I basically went down this road of trying to figure out what made one accurate, what made the other one less accurate. And then try and find a way to blend the kind of field reliability that the hunting guns had with the bench rest accuracy that the competition guns had. So I got together with a group of engineers and started doing some testing. We built some prototypes, and what I found was the tolerances that everything is machined to has a big impact on accuracy. But the problem is you make them super tight, like some of the competition guns, or some of these guys are actually selling hunting guns now, and you get any moon dust or ice in there and the bolt will seize up in the receiver. So I basically came up with this design that had the best of both worlds, where in battery, you had super tight tolerances, but when you open up the bolt to cycle the next round, it had very loose tolerances. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. And my original plan was to modify like factory Remingtons or 𝗙cies or whatever with this technology. But by the time you go down that route, you have a $300 Remington that you put $1,000 into it. Mm-hmm. You still have a Remington. So started building our own. And then I was like, well, there's not a whole lot of margin in this. So we went down the route of building the completed rifle. And then we went down the route of like, hey, we can't get carbon fiber stocks. They take a year to order. So we designed and made one that was probably their most popular selling thing. And got into full production in less time than it took us to order one.
Wow.
So it's definitely snowballed into now we're a machine shop and carbon fiber fabrication shop and ammo manufacturing and everything else. But we kind of had to do that, vertically integrate, just to make sure that we could have the absolute top of the line product.
Yeah, so is it safe to say that for the most part, like almost every single component or most every single important component of the rifle build that you guys manufacture?
We don't build, so we even went down the path of doing our own barrels, just to explore a few ideas and vet it out, see if we could make a better barrel. We were still relying on a very high-end barrel maker for the blank, and then outsourcing the carbon wrap and doing some things like that. Turns out, after it was all said and done, it didn't pencil out for performance or as the right business move. So we're still sourcing barrels, sourcing bottom metal and trigger, and optics mounts, and that's pretty much it. The rest is ours.
So anything that was key to production or anything that we found flaws in or could do better, we insourced. Anything that was already a good product on the market that with the lead times that we needed, we just buy. But we're starting to vertically integrate and insource more of that now.
Yeah, we're definitely not done with the house-made parts. We've recently had fixturing and machining stuff made and designed for doing our own barrel and bolt fluting in-house. We're setting up to start making our own extractors for the bolts. So kind of going back through in these little sort of high dollar, long lead time parts that we're having to depend elsewhere on, we're starting to bring some of that stuff in-house too.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's just since COVID, I mean, trying to get components in and rely on other places to receive a lot of those parts it's probably just been a nightmare. I mean, for you and anyone else that's in the manufacturing industry.
Yeah, it's probably half of my job.
just tracking that stuff down and
or
keeping
trying
on them.
to find alternate ways of making things and still get the same end product.
Yeah, and our business is growing so much all the time right in front of our eyes. We're sourcing a lot of the stuff has definitely gotten better in the past year and a half, but now our volume is going up to the point where we're having to refigure out lead times all the time, reorder quantities. These I'm holding it up on the video, but just this basic 9-inch steel bar for making a receiver, working with the suppliers like, hey, our volume is suddenly this. All last year it was this. What do we do to get an order of this stuff? We're basically out, and we've got all these rifles we need to build. So it's constantly changing. We're constantly chasing something. But the goal on everything is to do it without sacrificing quality.
Yep. So right now, I know you and I chatted a little back at DSC, but what's your lead time from when a customer calls in and orders a gun to when you guys can get that shot and shipped out?
A lot of it depends on what they're ordering. We're kind of in the hole right now, waiting on barrels or optics. So if it's an optic that we can get quick or have in stock, a barrel that we've got in stock, we're 3 to 4 months on the worst side. We're kind of telling everyone right now 4 to 5, just as a general thing, but it all depends. We're also now building, past couple months, about a dozen rifles a month just to put on the website so we can use components that aren't assigned to customers, and those always move really quick. Half of them never even make it to the website.
Yep.
Yeah, I notice I check that ready to ship all the time, and it like within the couple days there will be that one, the one I've previously viewed's gone, and there's a new one on there, but it's just like boom, boom, boom. They just move.
Yeah, we were supposed to have 6 of them done this week, and I think only 2 or 3 are going to go to the website because people just call. They say, "Hey, what's next?" We tell them about it. They say, "Put my name on it," and it's a pretty good way to go if somebody's not real picky about what the colors and everything are going to turn out.
Yep. Now, I know, I mean, the 𝗙RC has made a pretty big splash in, I guess, the calibers. I mean, are you guys seeing a specific caliber that sells better than others, or ones that guys want more? Or
Any of the 𝗙RCs.
Yeah.
I'd say, 8, maybe 7, 8 out of 10 rifles we're building are something 𝗙RC.
Wow.
We're already on our 3rd reamer for the 7 𝗙RC. It's just been going nuts.
So you're to blame for the ammo shortages that I can't go find somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear if you place back orders on Midway, they get filled. I've got a couple buddies who keep getting their back orders in. But when we talked to the guys at Hornady at that last show, they said, yeah, everyone's talking about the ammo shortages, this and that. Well, they're making 𝗙RC ammo around the clock. They think it's just because, pre-COVID and everything, people go pick up a box or 2 of what they need, but now they're buying everything they can get their hands on and just depleting things everywhere they see it.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. During COVID, I bought 10 boxes of 300 𝗙RC, and I don't even own a 𝗙RC.
Now that's egregious, because I got 10 boxes of 𝗙RC after I ordered one from AllTerra. But yeah, I mean, I went through 2 boxes, and now I've been loading my own, but I'm still sitting on those boxes of 𝗙RC just because you never know.
Exactly. That's everyone's mentality. You never know, so just buy as much as possible, and it's kind of crazy.
And then you end up in shortages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So touch a little bit. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about your guys' custom ammunition, because I know that, like, what initially attracted me and what stood out of AllTerra more so than other brands was this half-minute MOA guarantee. And that at the time was just something that really was unheard of. I mean, you saw sub-MOA guarantee, but not half. And that's with your custom ammunition. How is that? How are these shortages affecting that end? And how are you guys? I mean, I understand the logistics of loading and finding the node for each rifle, but like dive in, if you can, a little bit more into that custom ammunition you guys produce.
Yeah. So our guarantee was 1/4 inch with AllTerra ammo, and
that
then
right.
sub half with factory. Now, that was when we were able to do a full load development project for the individual rifle. Much more at the time leeway on availability of powders and bullets, and also just time to where we could spend a week with a single rifle dialing in a load. Now with the shortages we're talking about on components and our rifle volume going up, we dropped the load development thing, and we're just offering AllTerra ammunition for people that want it by the box. And we gathered so much data over those load development years that we were able to kind of go in and say, hey, this is the powder charges with this powder is pretty much always here. Seating depth's always between here and here. So we kind of just took a combination of all of them and turned it into AllTerra ammo. So now someone gets, and our manufacturing is so consistent that they shoot awesome in every single rifle we build. So yeah, it's sub half-inch guarantee with factory or our ammo. Um, Honestly, if a rifle's squeezing right on the hairy edge of half-inch groups out at the range, we kind of take it back to the drawing board because our stuff should be shooting. We shoot a lot of quarter-inch groups. We shoot a lot of .3s, kind of on the lower end. So cheaper for the customer, easier to get the ammo because we don't have to go pull their specific load, and we can adjust on the fly based on availability, because if we run out of one type of powder, we can work up another load that shoots the same velocity as the previous one did, and then just transition into that as our new recipe.
That's what's one thing I've really noticed about the 𝗙Terra that I have. Like when I was going through, and I was shooting the ELDXs and the ELDMs out of that 300 PRC, and then I loaded some with a variety of different slugs that I had. It shot all of them well. Like there wasn't one that it was just like sprayed. That was the big thing. I was like, well, it shoots all of them good. Obviously, there was some that it liked more than others, but it was such a small margin, and I like how, just from somebody looking at it, I don't know how, like maybe you guys can tell me how that is that gun is able to shoot just these small margins where I have other guns that I can go from shooting this load to another load, and it can go from 1 inch to 2 inch groups. I mean, just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Drew's. That's a lot of Drew's sort of designs coming into play here.
Yeah, so that was the main thing that I kind of sought out in the beginning. It was 7-8 years ago now, but it's those kind of the harmonics and the difference in harmonics are what causes that, right? And so for example, our muzzle brakes now have these tuners on them, which basically is a small weight at the end of it. And you could move that small weight a tiny bit and actually kind of tune in your groups. And so that amount of weight movement on the end of the barrel makes a big difference in accuracy. So if you have inconsistent harmonics in that rifle, you're going to have inconsistent groups, or it's going to be you're going to have bigger groups with one type of ammo than another type. But there's a lot that goes into that. There's chamber design, and there's chamber concentricity, along with the 3 patented technologies that we have in our receiver to bolt interaction and the receiver to barrel interaction. So the patented part, I already explained part of it, and that's how the bolt and the receiver fit together in super tight tolerance when you need that accuracy. But then we also have another patent on how the barrel mates to it, and every other receiver that I'm aware of, and we had a lot of patent searches to come up with this, just has threads that hold it on there. So we actually have a triple seating system. So there's 2 seating sleeves and then a shoulder. And so you have like permanent contact is not just relying on the accuracy of the threads to hold the barrel on there. So if there's any motion or movement between the barrel and the receiver, you're going to have inconsistent harmonics. So that was one of the patented things that we sought to control those harmonics as best as possible. And then the other thing is the way we do our chambers. Most everybody has, most gunsmiths have like a manual machine, and they indicate in a barrel and they just run a reamer in there and set headspace by just running the reamer to a certain depth. But what you find is you often have a lot of run out in that chamber. So when you put your cartridge in there, the bullet might not be axially aligned to that bore. So the bullet's starting off crooked down the hole. And so you get bullet deformation, and you get axial yaw. So we actually bought a CNC lathe just to do chamber jobs, and turns out it does a bunch of other stuff now that we've vertically integrated this much. But we actually go in and we drill the chamber, and then we bore the chamber, and then the reamer that cuts the final profile just barely touches. And so it has no way of walking. It's perfectly indicated in and actually aligned with the bore of the barrel.
Yeah, so if you think of a bore going down the barrel, it is not always perfectly dead center of, the outside diameter of the barrel. So the way we're able to cut these chambers in this machine is it sets up that chamber so that when the bullet is leaving the case and engages with the rifling, it's engaging perfectly even all the way around on every, in the lands and grooves. So it's not like coming out and having to bounce off of one side a little bit more and then find its way into the center of the bore as it's traveling at such velocity. It's just going in perfectly even. And that's sort of this concentricity thing that's, we spend a lot of time. In fact, it's our number one bottleneck in our production right now is just how long it takes to perfectly indicate and dial in a barrel to cut that perfect chamber.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I mean, those are little details you don't think about when you're just going out to buy a gun typically. Like,
yeah,
you think,
and it doesn't even stop there. We're just scratching the surface. Our machinist, Matt, part of his whole chambering process is to measure internal bore deflection. So you think of a barrel, 20 inch to 26, whatever, there's no such thing as a perfectly straight bore. Tools can't cut a hole in steel that long that's perfectly straight. So there will be some kind of internal tool walking or deflection. He's able to measure that and see what direction that's going inside the bore, and then he times it when he cuts the threads to go on the receiver, so that bore deflection is pointing perfectly north and south when it's torqued onto a receiver. So when you shoot these things out at distance, you aren't getting any kind of
Horizontal drift
that you can't calculate out with your dope. So that's why it's important to go shoot your rifle, gather your own ballistics, because every one is a little bit different. At least with ours, with that bore deflection, it's going north and south, so it's all dopable.
God, that's wild. I mean, a lot of that stuff is just.
well, it takes more guesswork out of it. At the end of the day, if you know that's what you're getting out of your rifle, then you're not questioning.
That's the thing. It even if it's over your head, that's okay because we're taking care of it, and it's in your final product. You don't have to worry about or wonder you're going to get a good shooting rifle, and these are some of the reasons why. But really, all you care about is that you got a good shooting rifle.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, with these tolerances and the way you have your machine set up, they're super tight tolerances. How often do you guys run into it when you get a gun out to the range that isn't hitting those standards? I mean, you mentioned that sometimes you will have one if it's fudging on the edge of that half, you'll bring it back and go back into it. How often do you guys run into that?
We find that 2 to 3 times a month, and it pretty much always results in a barrel tear off and put a new barrel on. There's things about the barrel that we have to assume are good, but we don't know for sure until we go shoot it, whether it be a very minor tight spot halfway through, or sometimes a barrel will start off at a perfect 9 twist, and then it opens up toward the muzzle to say a 9 1/4. Now we could measure that, but it's tough. We're talking tiny differences here.
Yeah.
And in a case like that, we just got to go break in a barrel and shoot groups and see what it's really going to do. And that's something that a lot of customers sort of feel safe about buying a rifle from us in, is that they know we're going to go do the work. We know we're not going to just let something out the door that's not up to our standards, because Our standards are higher than most customers, and it's a good way to ensure every rifle's awesome.
Yep. One thing, when you were talking about the timing on the muzzle brakes and the harmonics and everything, with the I've seen a big uptick in hunting with suppressors these days. Like, is there anything that you would recommend to people to like maintain that accuracy, or how much when you thread a suppressor on the end of a barrel is it affecting that accuracy?
Well, just ask Garth. If you put it on there loose, it's going to be you're going to suffer. Uh,
No, because I the first suppressor I hunted with, I put on my 7 mag, and it's like I have a 28-inch barrel on it and then an 8-inch suppressor. So I was like, anytime I'd get back to the truck, I would unthread it and then thread it back on. And I started noticing some differences in my impacts, and the gun's always shot like, half MOA. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And then I know Garth ran into some issues as well, and
Yeah.
he was told to Loctite his onto the barrel. So
Yeah, no, that is. I mean, I had mine, and I had talked to Todd, and I said, hey, I was shooting great. It was shooting great. I was just money, and then all of a sudden I was shooting low, I was shooting high, and he's like, well, here's a couple things that you probably want to check. And he says, first thing I would do is if you're shooting a suppressor, make sure it's tight. And I'm like, well, it was pretty tight. I mean, it wasn't like, I didn't crank it on there. He's like, yeah, I would put it on there as tight as you possibly can and Loctite it if need be, because that just the slightest little bit. And sure enough, from then on out, every time I put it on there, it was going on there as tight as I could physically turn it on there, and I never had another issue.
yeah, Drew, what's your engineering response to that?
So, like I was kind of describing with our tuner brakes, we have this end cap piece that screws onto the end of the brakes that's probably not even an ounce of weight. And if you move that a quarter turn, that's a significant accuracy change. And if that's also not tight, you basically you'll have different harmonics, so that the muzzle of the gun is pointed at a different place every time that bullet leaves. And a few thousandths of an inch of muzzle deviation or direction that it's pointing is a minute of angle or so at 1,000 or at 100 yards. So basically, as rigid as you can make the setup, aka tighten the suppressor and make sure it stays just that tight, or the muzzle brake, make sure that stays tight. We've seen that before. Muzzle brakes come loose, or obviously yours with the suppressor. You can set yourself up a lot better. The more rigidity is the king to consistent harmonics.
So even if does every one of your or not suppressors, every one of your muzzle brakes have that weighted on the air and it's set?
Yeah. Every rifle we build now uses that muzzle brake. We don't use it at all to qualify accuracy, but it's an option for the customer. Say someone ends up with a kind of a crap load, a crap batch of factory ammo, or something different than they're used to shooting, or someone hands them some hand loads and says, hey, here, shoot these. Even if they want to develop their own load, you know how you go through, get your powder charge, consistent velocity, and then you start playing with seating depth of the bullet to fine tune that accuracy. Well, with this brake, you can fine tune the harmonic of your barrel to your ammunition instead of the other way around. So it opens people up to really good accuracy across a wider range of ammo choices, and then also helps with load development because you can seat that bullet where it's ideal for maybe your internal box mag, where the chamber's cut, and then instead of sampling a whole bunch of seating depths, you can just shoot one seating depth and then tune the barrel to the harmonic.
Wow.
It
That's definitely
doesn't
something I
fix
haven't heard.
bad ammo, though. Just to put a caveat on that, if you have like bullets that are all different diameters, even though they all say 308, or bullets that have different weights, or the ammunition has drastically different powder charges. You can probably see that in velocity. It definitely won't fix that, but if you have good consistent ammo, you can definitely dial in your accuracy a little bit with that tuner break.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of bad ammo lately, factory ammo. You go through a box and the bolt feels different on every other one because the shoulders are set to different heights. Powder charges are inconsistent, all that stuff. A tuner, this muzzle brake, like Drew said, won't make up for that, but all other things being consistent, you can definitely utilize it to squeeze the most accuracy out of what you're shooting.
So I know Isaiah had a question he was talking about, but I'll ask because I was curious too after he said it. Is he, just kind of touching on that muzzle brake situation? But I only bring that up because we've noticed that barrels have gotten shorter throughout the course of history. The last, I'd say 10 years. Whereas he was talking, it used to be 26-inch barrel. That's what everyone kind of wanted, was a 24 to 26-inch barrel for accuracy, speed, everything else. But we've seen a shift going to shorter barrels now, which is quite nice if you are running suppressed because it doesn't put that overall length, clear out there. What is the reason for that? And is it just because that things have got so much better along the way they haven't needed longer barrels, or?
Well, back when you could get powder, several years ago, we were able to get like really good velocities out of these short barrel guns. So what's the point of having a 28-inch barrel when you could have something that you put in your pack and doesn't stick up, 3 feet above your head, get caught in trees and stuff? So that's kind of where the Mountain Shadow model rifle came from, was, short, compact, shot heavy for caliber bullets, and also pushed them at long barrel velocities. But everybody, even the big ammo manufacturers now, are in the same powder crunch that the rest of the country is. And so whether or not you can get the powders that will burn efficiently enough to get those long barrel velocities, we have, pretty decent stores of powder, but we still get the accuracy. I mean, it makes sense because now you have a shorter, more rigid barrel. Again, the harmonics thing, right? You might not have all the velocity in the world unless you can get certain powders, but you still get the same accuracy because you got a shorter barrel, and then you got all the benefits of having a nice compact gun that's a lot easier to put in your pack.
And the other thing is, look how far ballistics and rangefinders and apps that you can run your numbers in have come. You don't need to be shooting way north of 3,000 foot a second, because if something's at 350 or 400 or 425, you got to decide, well, do I hold on his back? Do I hold over his back? What is it? You range it, you dial, and you can shoot it 2,800 some odd feet per second and just hammer exactly where you want to hit. So the flat shooting stuff is not as big a deal anymore either because of all that.
So just to, is there a breaking point there where it no longer becomes about velocity in that longer barrel, but you can go down to a short enough barrel? Is there too short of a barrel where you start to lose some of that accuracy, or is just as long as the harmonics and rigidity of that barrel is true? Because I've seen some manufacturers at 16 inches.
Yeah, the bullet's got to be stable. So you have to be able to twist it in that period of time to get enough rotational speed to stabilize the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we go down to 20 inches on everything through 𝗙cie 𝗶𝗆. We cut it off at 22 for the magnums, larger than that. We do have some even shorter barrels on order to do some testing and stuff. but we kind of feel, at least for now, that's where we draw the line at 20 and 22 inches, just because we're building these rifles to perform farther than anyone should be shooting at animals with them. And to do that, you really got to stabilize the bullet. You got to, you can't forfeit all your velocity just for a shorter rifle. So it's definitely a balance that we're going to start playing with a little bit, but for now, we like where they're at on those 20 and 22s.
That, and also a lot of our competition doesn't have any kind of warranty or guarantee. So if you are shooting minute of angle groups, for us, that's immediate disqualifier. It's no sweat off their back just to be able to offer a 16-inch barrel, 18-inch barrel, right?
Yeah.
But like Todd said, our goal is performance here, and so these 20s and 22s have worked out really well, and we're going to experiment some with 16 and a half to 18 range barrels.
Same thing with total rifle weight. We could build these rifles a little lighter, but we're going to be sacrificing accuracy and long range performance, and so we kind of keep them in that mid to high 6, low 7 pounds range, depending on your model and options and stuff. And the other thing is they balance really well. People pick these rifles up, a bear rifle at the trade shows, and they go, "Whoa, what is this? 5.5 pounds?" No, it's 6 3/4. But they shoot awesome. We could make it a pound less, but we aren't going to give up the performance to do that.
Yeah, which they're incredibly lightweight as it is. I mean, you think about it, that's a lightweight rifle, especially when you're talking about the distance that it's capable of shooting. And that's I was just thinking, there had to be some grace right there. So it sounds like 20 to 22 from where you guys are at still maintains that weight and velocity and accuracy.
Yeah, and it still meets Drew's original goal, back to his napkin story, where we have a bench wrist, performing rifle at a hunting weight.
Yep.
And so let me ask you this: the difference in your Mountain Shadow and AllTerra models, is that? I mean, and those are the main two. I mean, I think you have a heavier weight model as well, more for accuracy, long range, or longer, I should say. But what are the main differences in those two? I mean, they look very similar when you map them out on the website and look at them, but maybe you can explain what the main difference is between those two models.
Yeah, we have a Mountain Shadow carbon and a Mountain Shadow steel. That just denotes the shortest barrel, lightest weight variety that we can build it, but still include the muzzle brake and all of our sort of top line features. Now, if you don't want a muzzle brake, you don't want a 20 or 22-inch barrel, say someone wants just a steel barrel with no fluting or lighter weight straight fluting, then they would be an AllTerra steel. They could add on the muzzle brake. They could add on the other options to essentially make it the same as a Mountain Shadow. It would just end up with a longer barrel. So we wanted to have rifle models just to be able to define what's what. If for people shopping, when there's a model they can click on and see what it comes with, it's easier. But you can end up with a rifle with any of our options. Just depends on what you want and how you get there.
Yeah, and I know that's another big kind of a hot topic is, do you guys see a real difference in the steel versus carbon barrels, or, I mean, any more is technology there that they're sixes across the board?
By the time a customer gets one from us, no, but we do reject more carbon barrels than steel. One, we build a lot more carbons, but even the percentage of rejects on carbon barrels for accuracy is higher than steel. There's sort of a whole reason behind it.
Yeah, and we can't prove everything or every one of those barrels why it does that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've added one extra process and one extra, layer of material and have it bonded to the steel. So you still have to do all the
Yeah.
same work to a carbon barrel that you do to a steel barrel. But then it has to get profiled down a lot smaller and then wrap carbon fiber around it with epoxy and have it adhere to the steel. So um, my guess is the ones that we do reject for accuracy um, probably have to do with delamination of the carbon.
Yep.
Well, the other thing is, you know how I explained earlier, no such thing as a perfectly straight bore, right? So if you take a full contour steel barrel and they profile it down nice and skinny before putting a carbon wrap on, if it's a barrel that has more of that bore deflection than most, and they profile it down on a single plane, you have a greater variance in wall thickness on each side of that bore. So what happens after you shoot a few rounds? The steel inside around the bore heats up, and if it's been profiled down to where there's a thicker side on one side versus the other, it's going to heat differently and throw a little bit of stress into that bore. Where you take a solid steel barrel, you haven't turned it down at all, you've got all that meat of homogeneous material, and that's not going to be nearly as exposed as a thin version when you start getting them hot.
So just listening to that, like what outside of just the weight, where you can get a lighter weight gun with a carbon wrap barrel, what are the pros and cons? Like I'm just kind of listening to that, and it sounds like a steel barrel. There's less cons than a carbon wrap, but you guys would know way more than me.
Yeah, if somebody was gonna pick their parts and build them one themselves, and they said, no matter what, this is gonna be my rifle. I want it to shoot as good as possible. I don't want to have to reject a barrel or start over. The safest bet would be to go with a high quality steel barrel, but like I mentioned, that's part of our vetting process on every rifle we build. Is if we go out there and we start seeing dispersion as soon as that barrel's warming up, that's what I mean by rejecting a barrel and starting over, is we're uncovering stuff like that. And of course, we do enough of them that, of course, it's going to come up. If someone's going to go do a one-off build, chances are they're going to have a perfectly fine barrel. But that's exactly what we see when we say we're rejecting a barrel and starting over.
Yeah, no, I like that because, I mean, basically you're taking the risk, not the end consumer.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's sort of a little extra insurance thing.
So I know with all these new hot calibers and everything out there, I mean, just personal preference for the two of you, like what's your favorite all around cartridge out there in 2023?
I don't even have one, but when people ask that, it's hands down that new 7 PRC.
It's kind of right in the middle. It's not the big kicker that the 300 is, so you can still shoot small stuff. It's a little bit more horsepower than the 6.5, but yeah, it's right in the middle. And it's, the good thing about the PRC line and the Creedmoor is they basically designed them well for modern bullets. A lot of these other chamberings are a lot older chamber geometry and designed for different shaped bullets than we shoot today. Like you go to the store and you're not going to find a lead nose round tip unless it's some dangerous game thing. I mean, almost everything's got a point or a polymer tip on them now. So they're definitely designed properly for accuracy and for modern bullets to just perform better.
And I'm assuming you guys have probably have some loads that you're developing. I know that's a brand new caliber, but I'm assuming you guys have already built some loads and expanded on that 7 PRC.
Only we had one customer, and California guy has to shoot the copper bullets. So we developed one copper load, and there's no virgin brass available, so we did it on our once fired factory Hornady brass, and it shot great. But what we're really loving about that 7 PRC is we're shooting tons of 1/4 inch groups with factory ammo with good consistent velocity. So we're not even chomping at the bit to start doing our own ammo in it because the factory stuff shoots so well. So for what we're doing here and sort of trying to keep up with this higher volume of orders that are coming in, man, the more of those 7 PRC orders we take, the better, because we're just so confident in how great they're going to shoot.
Yeah, I know. Forrest, he went out there with you guys to Texas on that Aoudad hunt, and when he got back, that was my big question. I said, well, I have a little girl that hunts with me. She's 15, my daughter, and she shoots a 6.5 just fine, but I had her shoot my 300 PRC, and I was shooting a suppressed, so it did take some of that kick out of it, but not as much as a break would have. And I had her shoot it once, and she looked at me and she's like, "Nope, I'm not doing that again." So, but when it comes to like bigger animals, like for an elk or something like that, she did take one down with a 6.5 PRC this year. But I would feel a little bit better for about that 7 PRC. And I asked Forrest, and he said, "Man, there was kind of a small gal out there." And he says, "I don't know how many shots she fired through that 7 PRC, and didn't flinch a bit."
Yeah, it's because the 6.5 and the 300s were so popular, but they were far enough apart that the recoil, the ballistics, the bullet weight, they were far enough apart for that 7 to land right in between, and it's really impressive the way that the bullet weight's right in between, the ballistics are right in between, the recoil, and we have the same thing. Customers where they'll shoot their 6.5 all day, and they get a 300 PRC from us, and they're like, "I do not want to take that to a shooting school. I'm going to get a flinch. It's too much." Of course, it is proper horsepower for the bigger stuff, elk and bigger. But that 7, man, it's fun, accurate, great ballistics, awesome factory ammo. I don't have anything negative about it.
Yeah, it definitely threw a wrench in my plans because I was planning on getting a new gun this year at some point and was thinking the 300 PRC, and then the 7 PRC comes out, and now it has me rethinking my ideas.
Yeah, if I was going to start a new one out there in the shop today, hands down, it'd be that 7.
Which is just going to add to the shortage. Well, you guys got any questions for? I mean, like I say, I think I got a pretty good idea. I mean, about AllTerra, and I've loved my rifle, and like I say, it's been the most accurate rifle I've ever owned. I mean, I took a video of it and brought it in and showed these guys. I was practicing out in my range at like 850, and it was the first time that I can remember where I shot, and at that distance, and then the follow-up shot was, I mean, and it was on steel, but the follow-up shot was dang near touching the first shot, and it made me look good. I mean, it wasn't really me, but but I felt better after it.
Yeah, I remember those first videos that you had when you first got it through the spotting scope, and you were stacking them on top of each other. I think I remember it was probably summertime. There was a bunch of heat waves flowing, and you could tell there was a pretty heavy crosswind. And you were hammering with that thing. That's the experience we want everyone to have.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Like I say, it's been my favorite rifle to date for sure. So let me ask you this: where can we find you guys as far as your website? We'll put a link in the bottom of your website, but more information, is it to go to your website, social, all the above?
Yeah, AllTerraArms.com, AllTerra. You can call us 208-608-5179. We're AllTerra Arms on the social media stuff. And for these Huntin' Fool listeners, if they want to get their hands on one of these rifles, call Huntin' Fool and tell them, hey, will you put some AllTerras in your new Gear Fool shop?
We would love to have some AllTerras in our Gear Fool shop. That's 100%.
We're going to have to get one out here for, testing and reviews and all that, though. So.
Yeah. Let's see. It'll probably be a 7 PRC for a right-eye dominant left-hand shooter, right?
Yeah, I'll send over my specs later.
No, and I mean, that is one plug I can put in and testify to. I know throughout the purchase of my gun, just anytime I needed any questions answered or touching base, and that's been something that's been hard to do with any other people or any other manufacturers for that fact, is to get in touch with someone. And I have never had a problem getting a hold of anyone, getting anything touched on, like my suppressor issue. I couldn't figure it out. It was immediate response. So I can say that the customer service at AllTerra is actually second to none. So you guys do a great job.
Yeah, there's not many of us, and we do, when we pick up a customer, they kind of feel like family, and the rifles take a good week plus to build in the shop, and they're always something particular on color or choices here and there, and we end up talking to the customers quite a bit throughout the process. So it's one of those things where we're really connected to a project and a customer by the time their thing leaves the door.
No, I can say the same. I had a buddy that ordered one that I delivered to him this past spring, and I mean, everything from the fit and finish to the little name tag on his gun case, like, he was blown away. I mean, you can tell you're really getting a quality piece of gear that's not just going to last a couple of years, but something you could eventually pass down. So
yeah, exactly.
And if anyone wants to see these AllTerras in action, I watched Todd's YouTube video the other day on his Idaho mule deer hunt. Great job, by the way. Awesome buck. Loved it.
Oh, thanks. You like that?
I did. Now, I next time you go out, I just want you to set up a back camera behind it so we can see the animal while we're seeing you shooting. Then we can see the whole thing unravel.
Oh, I know. I did that whole thing with just a GoPro, and I forgot from last season I got a new phone, so my phone scope didn't fit anymore. That would have been awesome if I could have captured the kill, but well, the direction it was pointed would have kind of unveiled a little too much on a full GoPro view anyway, but you know how it is.
I heard the whop, so I know you were shooting an animal because I heard the whop.
Yeah.
So it was a great buck. I mean, I was trying to think, man, I wonder what unit he was at over there. Where was he hanging at?
I got the unit info. We're gonna write it up as the top pick in Huntin' Fool this year.
Isaiah knows. Honestly, I don't know. How'd I do versus what you expected, Isaiah? You think I maybe should have found a little bigger one in there?
No, at the end of the day, I mean, I think too many people these days focus on trophy quality and instead of enjoying the hunt and getting out of it what you want to get out of it. I mean, I know I had a couple hunts this year that I wouldn't say I settled, but I felt like the deer I shot was good enough for the time I was having in the field. So eventually you have to draw the line in the sand and say, I don't know. You just see too many guys that focus too much on shooting the biggest animal in the unit instead of just relaxing and, really soaking up the hunt. So.
Right. Yeah, I was really happy with that buck after the amount of time I scouted and had a pretty good feel for what I should be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kudos to you, because I probably would have shot one of those first 2 bucks you rolled up on and said, these are the best bucks I've scouted. I probably would have just put the nail in the coffin in one of them.
Yeah,
Called her a day.
That was tough. I wanted to keep hunting, though.
Yeah.
I'd have gone back to them end of season and been perfectly stoked. But, yeah, time in the field's hard to beat.
Well, you can go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and when we have a video coming out in Kodiak Island, and you can see some of the smallest deer that you could harvest with an AllTerra. So they are not known for their size, for sure.
Yeah,
They're fun, though.
Those bucks are awesome up there.
That was a ball. I was telling Todd that I actually ended up – I shot my buck with it. I borrowed it to Brady to shoot his buck, and then I borrowed it to Erin for her to shoot her buck.
Yeah.
So just about half of the bucks that ended up being taken on that trip were shot with that gun.
Nice. Yeah, we'll definitely share that also when it's available.
I mean, there's not anybody as handsome as Todd on that one, so we're not going to have as much eye candy available, but
what are you gonna do?
yeah, just work with what we got. Well, we appreciate you guys' time, and again, check out AllTerra Arms if you want one of the finest built rifles that is built right now. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I appreciate it, guys.